My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for this moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has shifted. Something that appeared delayed, silent, and uncertain has finally begun to move. The next step your soulmate has been afraid to take is no longer only a thought hidden inside their heart. It is becoming a decision. It is becoming an action. And before this message ends, you will understand why the silence around you has felt so unusual, why your spirit has sensed movement without seeing evidence, and why heaven is saying to you now, prepare yourself. It is finally happening. Pause here for a moment, because the person connected to your heart has reached a point they never expected to reach. For a long time, they believed they could continue carrying their feelings quietly. They thought they could keep distracting themselves, hiding behind responsibilities, pretending that time would reduce the intensity of what they felt for you. But something has changed inside them. The distance did not make them forget you. The silence did not make the connection disappear. Instead, every unanswered question grew louder. Every memory became clearer. Every moment without you revealed something they had been trying not to admit. They can no longer remain where they have been. Do not skip, because the next revelation explains why their energy may have felt closer lately, even if their physical presence has not yet appeared. Their soul has been rehearsing a moment. Their mind has been returning to the same possibility again and again. They have imagined what they would say if they finally spoke honestly. They have imagined your expression, your silence, your reaction, and even the possibility that you may not believe them at first. This is not a passing thought. It has become a private emotional preparation. Your soulmate is planning their next step. But understand this, my child, the next step is not as simple as sending a casual message or appearing as though nothing happened. What they are preparing carries emotional weight. It requires them to confront the version of themselves that avoided truth. It requires them to place pride beneath sincerity. It requires them to stop protecting their image and start protecting the connection. That is why this moment has taken longer than your heart wanted. They were not only deciding whether to move toward you. They were deciding whether they were ready to become the person capable of standing before you honestly. Something is waiting for you deeper in this message, so stay until the end. The truth is that your soulmate recently experienced an awakening through an ordinary moment that became extraordinary. It may have happened while they were alone, while looking through an old memory, while hearing a familiar song, while passing a place connected to you, or while listening to someone speak about love and regret. The outer moment appeared small, but the inner impact was enormous. Suddenly, they saw the cost of continuing to wait. They saw a future in which you moved forward without them. And for the first time, that possibility did not feel distant. It felt real. The thought of losing access to your heart created a silence within them that no distraction could fill. They realized that while they had been waiting for perfect timing, life had continued moving. While they had been gathering courage, you had been healing. While they had been wondering whether you still cared, your soul had been learning not to chase what refused to meet you halfway. This realization shook them deeply, because they understood that your love may be patient, but your destiny is not required to remain paused forever. Listen closely. Heaven is not revealing this so that you will abandon your peace and begin waiting anxiously. You are being shown this because you have sensed a turning point, and part of you has wondered whether you were imagining it. You were not imagining the shift. Something has entered motion. Yet your role is not to force it. Your role is to remain aligned with the strength you developed during the silence. The version of you they remember is not the same version of you they may soon encounter. You have changed. You have learned that love should not require you to lose yourself. You have learned that spiritual connection does not excuse emotional confusion. You have learned that promises are meaningful only when actions stand beside them. And although your heart may still recognize your soulmate, your spirit now requires truth, consistency, and courage. This growth is not creating distance from the connection. It is creating the standard through which the connection must now pass. Your soulmate can feel that difference. They feel that you are no longer energetically standing at the same door, waiting for them to decide whether to enter. They feel that something within you has turned toward your own life. You may still care. You may still remember. You may still wonder. But you are no longer willing to live inside uncertainty forever. This is one of the reasons their next step is finally happening. Your healing has created movement where your chasing never could. Do not skip now, because there is another layer. Your soulmate has been speaking less about you outwardly, but thinking more about you inwardly. Some people assume silence means indifference, yet in this case, silence has become the place where realization grew. They have reviewed conversations they once dismissed. They have remembered the moments when you showed patience they did not fully appreciate. They have recognized how often you understood what they could not explain. They have seen the difference between attention that entertains and love that transforms. You transformed them, even when they resisted it. That transformation frightened them. Not because your love was wrong, but because it revealed places within them that were unfinished. Your presence made them aware of the emotional walls they had normalized. You made them question relationships that looked comfortable but felt empty. You made them imagine a deeper life, a more honest life, a life where they could no longer hide behind the patterns that once protected them. They were not prepared for how clearly you would see them. There were moments when they pulled away because being understood felt more vulnerable than being desired. Desire can remain on the surface. Understanding enters the hidden rooms. You saw their strength, but you also sensed the fear beneath it. You saw their confidence, but you noticed the hesitation behind their words. You saw the person they presented to the world, yet your soul responded to the person they rarely allowed anyone to meet. And now they miss being known in that way. Stay until the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The next step they are preparing is connected to a truth they have not yet spoken. This truth has been building pressure inside them. They have attempted to soften it, rename it, and reason their way around it, but it continues returning in one clear form. They do not want to continue their future without knowing whether there is still a path back to you. This does not mean they expect everything to return to how it was. In fact, they know it cannot. Too much has changed. Too many lessons have been learned. Too much silence has shaped both of you. Their next step is not an attempt to recreate the past. It is an attempt to discover whether something new can rise from what the past revealed. That distinction matters. They know that approaching you with old habits will not work. They know that vague words will not reach the version of you who has learned discernment. They know that a temporary emotional confession will not be enough. Somewhere inside them, they understand that if they move toward you now, they must bring clarity. They must explain what delayed them. They must acknowledge what their silence caused. They must show that this is not another moment of emotion that disappears when fear returns. Your soulmate is not only thinking about contact. They are thinking about accountability. This is why their next step may surprise you. You may have expected a simple message, but their spirit is being pushed towards something more meaningful. Perhaps a direct conversation. Perhaps an honest admission. Perhaps a decision that changes their current circumstances. Perhaps an action that proves they are no longer willing to hide behind uncertainty. The exact form is still being shaped, but the intention beneath it is becoming stronger. They want you to see that something is different. Yet there is a struggle taking place within them tonight, or in the quiet hours surrounding this message. One part of them is ready to move. Another part is afraid that they waited too long. They wonder whether your heart has closed. They wonder whether someone else now understands your value. They wonder whether you would hear their truth or protect yourself by turning away. These fears have delayed them before, but now the fear of doing nothing has become greater than the fear of rejection. That is the turning point. For many days, weeks, or perhaps longer, they believed waiting protected them. Now they understand waiting may cost them the very connection they were trying not to mishandle. They are beginning to see that silence is also a choice. Delay is also a decision. Avoidance creates consequences even when no harsh words are spoken. And this realization has made them restless. You may notice this shift through your own emotions. Perhaps you have recently thought about them unexpectedly. Perhaps you dreamed of a conversation. Perhaps their name appeared in unusual places. Perhaps you felt a sudden wave of emotion that did not seem connected to your day. These experiences do not need to control you, but they may reflect the emotional intensity surrounding this turning point. Your connection has carried unspoken energy for a long time, and now that energy is approaching expression. But heaven is asking you to remain grounded. Do not turn every sign into a promise. Do not abandon wisdom for hope. Do not place your life on hold because movement may be happening. The healthiest preparation is not obsession. It is peace. It is knowing that whatever approaches you must meet the standards of the person you have become. The right next step from your soulmate will not require you to ignore your intuition. It will bring increasing clarity, not deeper confusion. This message is not telling you to accept less because the connection feels spiritual. It is reminding you that what is truly aligned will respect your emotional well-being. Divine love does not need manipulation to survive. It does not ask you to shrink your needs. It does not punish you for asking honest questions. What is coming must be measured not only by how deeply it moves your heart, but by how consistently it honors your spirit. Your soulmate is learning this now. They once believed feelings were enough. They are discovering that feelings without courage create longing, but not partnership. Feelings without communication create assumptions, but not understanding. Feelings without action create potential, but not a shared future. This lesson has been painful for them because they know the depth was real, yet they also know they did not always give that depth a form you could trust. Now they are asking themselves a question they avoided for too long. What am I willing to do about what I feel? That question has changed everything. Do not skip. There is a hidden reason this step is happening now instead of earlier. Your soulmate had to witness the collapse of an illusion. They had to learn that choosing what is familiar does not always create peace. They had to discover that avoiding emotional risk does not prevent pain, it only changes the kind of pain they experience. They may have tried to create a life that looked stable from the outside, but something inside remained incomplete. Your absence became the mirror. Without your presence, they began to recognize what you brought. You did not merely bring affection. You brought emotional honesty. You brought a sense of recognition. You brought a rare feeling of being both challenged and accepted. You made them imagine becoming more than they had been. And although they sometimes resisted the pressure of growth, they now understand that comfort without truth could never replace the connection they experienced with you. This does not mean their life stopped. It means that no matter what they did, the lesson of you continued. There were moments when they almost reached out. Their fingers hovered over a message. Their mind formed the first sentence. They imagined saying something simple to test the distance between you. But each time, they stopped because they knew a casual opening would hide the seriousness of what they truly wanted to say. They did not want to appear vulnerable without knowing where the conversation would lead. Now that hesitation is weakening. They are beginning to accept that vulnerability is not a guarantee of the outcome. It is simply the price of truth. They cannot control your response. They cannot erase the time that passed. They cannot demand that you trust them immediately. All they can do is stand honestly in front of what they feel and allow you to decide what their truth means for your future. This acceptance is bringing them closer to action. Something extraordinary is developing behind the scenes. A conversation, realization, or unexpected event is about to remove their final excuse. Someone may ask them a question they cannot avoid. They may receive news that makes time feel more precious. They may see evidence that your life is changing. Or they may simply wake from another restless night with the sudden understanding that they cannot carry this unspoken truth any longer. The next step will begin when emotion becomes decision. And my child, that moment is nearer than it has ever been. However, there is something you must know before they move. Your soulmate is not only afraid of losing you. They are afraid of being fully seen by you again. They know you will recognize whether their words are rehearsed or sincere. They know you will notice whether their actions match their promises. They know that your heart may still be tender, but it is no longer easily convinced. This is why they are preparing carefully. They are thinking about the questions you may ask. Why now? What changed? Why did you remain silent? What do you truly want? Are you ready, or are you simply lonely? These questions frighten them because they require more than romantic language. They require self-awareness. They require them to name the fear that controlled them. They require them to admit that they may have hurt someone they deeply cared about. Yet they are no longer running from these questions as quickly as before. They have begun answering them privately. Why now? Because the possibility of losing you has become unbearable. What changed? They did. Why the silence? Because they were afraid of what the connection demanded from them. What do they want? A chance to speak honestly and discover whether the door is truly closed. Are they ready? This is the question still trembling inside them. Stay with me. The most important revelation is approaching. Your soulmate's next step may not look dramatic to the outside world, but spiritually and emotionally it represents a major crossing. The person who avoided choosing is preparing to choose. The person who hid behind uncertainty is preparing to become clear. The person who waited for a sign is realizing that they must become the sign through their own actions. They have received enough confirmation. The remaining movement depends on courage. There is a specific moment they keep imagining. In that moment, you are standing before them or listening from the other side of a conversation. They begin with words they have rewritten in their mind many times. But the sentence they truly want to say is simpler than all the others. I should have told you sooner. Those words carry more than regret. They carry a confession that the connection mattered even when they acted uncertain. They carry an acknowledgement that their silence was not emptiness. They carry the truth that they were emotionally affected far more deeply than you were allowed to see. They want to tell you what happened during the distance. They want to tell you about the nights they nearly contacted you. They want to explain the moments when they compared every connection to what they felt with you. They want to admit that some of their confidence was only performance. They want to reveal that they watched from a distance, wondered about your heart, and felt the consequences of choices they once believed they could postpone. But there is one truth they are still afraid to say. This truth is connected to the actual next step. They are not merely thinking of returning to speak. They are considering changing something significant so their actions no longer contradict their feelings. This may involve ending an old pattern, releasing an attachment, correcting a misunderstanding, admitting the truth to someone close to them, or making space in their life for a future they once thought they were not ready to build. The shift is deeper than communication. It is preparation. They are preparing to show you that they understand what a real beginning would require. They know they cannot ask you to trust an intention that has no structure. They know they cannot invite you into a life where there is no space for you. They know they cannot speak of destiny while continuing to choose fear. So something is being cleared. Do not rush to guess what it is. Let the truth reveal itself through action. Your peace must not depend on decoding every hidden movement. What belongs to you will not need to remain hidden forever. What is real will eventually become visible. What is sincere will accept the responsibility of being clear. Heaven has watched you question whether the connection was only meaningful to you. You wondered whether they remembered the same moments. You wondered whether they felt the separation. You wondered whether their silence meant they had chosen a life where you no longer mattered. The answer is more complicated than you imagined. They tried to move as though it did not matter. But they could not become indifferent. They tried to place logic over emotion. But the heart continued speaking. They tried to convince themselves that timing had ended the story. But every attempt at closure revealed another unfinished chapter. This is why your soulmate's next step is finally happening. Not because every fear has disappeared, but because the truth has become stronger than the fear. Courage does not always arrive as confidence. Sometimes courage arrives as exhaustion with one's own avoidance. Sometimes it sounds like, I am still afraid, but I cannot remain silent. That is where they are now. You must be ready, not by rehearsing your response, but by remembering your worth. When the moment comes, listen carefully. Do not only hear what they say. Notice what they are willing to acknowledge. Notice whether they respect your experience. Notice whether they rush you or allow you space. Notice whether the conversation is centered only on their pain, or whether they understand yours. A genuine next step will not demand instant forgiveness. It will not pressure you to forget. It will not use spiritual language to avoid accountability. It will show patience. It will accept that rebuilding trust takes time. It will recognize that love may reopen a door, but consistency is what keeps it open. Your soulmate is approaching a test of maturity. And you are approaching a test of discernment. This is not punishment. It is preparation for something healthier than what existed before. Both of you have been changed by the distance. Both of you have discovered hidden parts of yourselves. Both of you now carry choices that did not exist at the beginning. But there is a detail you have not yet been shown. The final push toward their next step came through something they recently learned about you. It may not be what you expect. They did not simply hear that you still cared. They learned something about how you carried yourself during the separation. They discovered that despite your pain, you did not destroy their name. You did not expose every private detail. You did not become cruel simply because you were hurt. You protected your dignity. That realization humbled them. They saw that your love was never weakness. Your restraint was strength. Your silence was not emptiness. It was self-respect. You could have responded differently, yet you chose healing over revenge. And now they understand that losing access to a heart like yours would not be a small consequence. It would be a lifelong lesson. Something huge is waiting for you, so do not leave yet. Their next step is closer than a distant someday. A plan is forming around a particular opportunity. There may be a date, a place, a message, or a person connected to how this unfolds. They are searching for the moment that feels honest enough to begin. But heaven is pressing them with a warning: stop waiting for perfection. No perfect sentence can erase the past. No perfect timing can remove all risk. No perfect plan can guarantee your response. The only path forward is truth spoken with humility. And your soulmate is beginning to surrender to that reality. They are closer to reaching out than they were yesterday. Closer to confessing than they were before this awakening. closer to changing their life than they have allowed anyone to know. Yet tonight, one final obstacle stands before them. It is not another person. It is not distance. It is not circumstance. It is the fear that when they finally tell you everything, you will discover the one hidden decision they made during the silence, the decision that now forces them to act before it becomes too late. And my child, what they decided in that private moment is the real reason their next step is no longer a possibility. It is already beginning.